Just as a way to start, how many of you were raised in traditional Christian setting? All but about two or three. So when we ask the question, are you saved, you know what I'm referring to. And even if you weren't raised in it, you may have had somebody show up on your doorstep and ask you this question. But it is the question every soul must answer. Are you saved? The question every soul must answer. How many of you lay awake at night worried about that question? I hope none of you. Hope none of you do. I don't think I ever have, to tell you the truth. My exposure was the Christian church and then the Baptist church, which are both Christian denominations. But the Baptist church, I was fairly fortunate that it was not one of the hellfire damnation ones. I have seen those. I've been exposed to them, and usually we would have a revival every year, where we'd bring a minister in, and that'd be the hellfire damnation time. I guess just to help, get new people in and whatever. I don't know what the reasoning was behind all that. But it was a question on my mind. I think I've shared with you that the minister would have an altar call every Sunday, and we would sing a song, and Just As I Am, and he would talk about, is Jesus speaking to your heart, and all this kind of thing, and trying to get people to come up front. And I noticed that there would be people that would come up multiple times, not just one time. And I was always under the impression that if you were baptized once, that was enough. But he kept saying that, and I kept wondering, maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not saved. So I think that's the closest I ever came to being worried about it. And I asked him about it, and he said, I think you're okay. But he didn't really know me. He didn't know me as well as I knew me, so I never was quite sure. But it is a question on a lot of people's minds, I know. And most people that are involved in a traditional organization that is an insurance policy against not being saved usually feel pretty confident that they're okay, that they're in. They are concerned about other people. And the reason I'm talking about this, the subject is prompted by a couple of contacts I've had over the last few weeks. One came through YouTube comments correcting all my errors concerning the end times. And that was a very long comment, on YouTube. I think it's the second one he has sent. I'm pretty sure it's the same person. And I just deleted it. I did read it, but it's an endless battle to try to come back and explain, well, no, this is not the way we see it and all. I mean, there's just no arguing religion. Politics and religion, you know the rule. So, but you would think a minister would like to argue religion. Well, I'm not interested in arguing religion because I've been on that side of it. I've heard all that. I've seen, as I said when I talked about it, I've seen people draw up charts and maps and all the things they talk about the end times, who's going to be the beast and what does 666 and who is that, and all that stuff that they go into, which is what this guy was doing. So I just draw a blank. I'm not interested in even talking about it. But the other was a phone call from a concerned woman from Arizona who discovered the church website and felt the need to bring me into alignment with the Bible, at least as she understood it. So I get this call on the church telephone line, and a lot of times that line will say, this looks like spam, which I'm very grateful for, and I don't ever answer those. This one said it was a verified number, so I answered it. Well, the woman starts asking me questions about what we believe, and I like those kinds of calls. I'm always interested in getting them. My antenna always goes up, though, because that's usually how the conversation starts. It's like, I'm interested in what you believe. Not really. You know, I'm just going to get a little bit of information out of you so I can fix you. And I love responding to those who are genuinely interested in what we teach. The moment I discover the questions are being used as a setup for answers they already have, the conversation ends. And that's what happened. We went along for, probably 15 minutes or so, and I thought, this woman sounds like she's interested in what we're about. And I had a call, I told you about it, probably a year and a half ago or so, that a woman wanted to interview me and ask questions, and that was a very productive phone call. She was not one of us in terms of, she was not ready to believe. She was doing the interview for a college class that she was taking with a religious institution. So she was working toward ordination or licensing or something. I don't know what she was working toward, but she was actually very open-minded. It surprised me. And I surprised her with my answers. Some of them actually made sense to her. But this woman that called, nothing I said made sense to her, I could tell. I picked it up, within 15 minutes or so. But she would ask these questions so she could come back, and then finally I said, every question you ask, you already have the answer. So I'm not sure why you're asking me. She says, well, I have the answer because my answer comes out of the Bible. So that was near the end of the conversation. Because again, she would start quoting scriptures, and it's all memorized stuff, it's all stuff she's learned from somebody else. And makes perfect sense to her, and I'm perfectly happy for her to be happy with that, But what I don't realize is why somebody would call a minister out of the clear blue, one that's been doing this for a while, and try to change their mind, think maybe I missed something along the way. And I didn't want to say, at one time in my life, I was one of you. I'm not rude. I'm not going to be rude to them. But, it brings back all those feelings of, you can tell the person's not coming from their heart. They're not coming from who they are. They're coming from what they picked up someplace. And the conversation kind of ends like, I just love hearing myself tell you how wrong you are. That's the feeling you get. It's like, I'm going to fix you. I'm going to correct you. So why bother? Why would somebody bother to reach out to a complete stranger, especially a minister, begin questioning their religious beliefs? That's always baffled me. In this work, I've gotten letters and phone calls from people different times. It's been a while since I've gotten one, so I must be doing something right. But usually I enjoy the conversation. It's even when I know I had a Chinese student. He was in, of course, one of our colleges. He was here in one of the religious schools in Missouri when we were there. And he and his mother came into my office. He, again, wanted to do an interview, but he was doing an interview on cult leaders. So I was that guy. So we talked quite a while, and actually it was pretty productive, but I felt like if I just jumped up and said boo, he would have shot through the door like he'd seen a ghost. Very much on edge, and his mother was kind of, I think she had a revolver in her purse, she was, I don't know what was going on, but I think he got what he wanted. I asked him if I could read the paper, that he wrote, and I never got it, so I guess I couldn't read it. But they weren't trying to change me. They were genuinely asking, but coming from a place where I wasn't. I'm not a cult leader. Do you think I'm a cult leader? If I am, then you guys you're worse off than I am, because you're the follower. But that title has been tossed my way several times throughout my career. That unity's a cult, and it's it's very obvious. It's not mainstream. Well, it's not. That's why we're in it. It's not mainstream, but it's a different approach. And even a lot of the unity beliefs, if I got up in front of a full-fledged unity audience, well, this is a full-fledged unity audience, but one that was not used to me, I would say things probably that they would question, and because I question even some of the things I've been taught in unity. And I think we should do that. I think we should always, that's why I'm asking the question, are you saved? This is something you need to answer. I'm not here with the answer. I'm saying we all need to think about it. But the whole religious system that is out there, it's understandable why people would ask us this and why they would be concerned about our soul. Their intentions are good, for they've been taught that a soul on the wrong religious track is a soul in danger of eternal damnation. So if I truly believe that, I might go door to door and I might try to see if somebody's interested in, if I was concerned about their soul burning in hell forever. I wouldn't do it now, but maybe as a younger person I would do that. No, I never have done it. But I can see why people do it. And I would not diminish their intention in terms of the value of it, because they're coming from a place where they feel they're doing a genuine service, and they may actually keep you from roasting for eternity. That would be a pretty good thing. So if you have that belief system in the first place, then that's fine. But when you start trying to impose that on somebody else that you don't even know, again, this happens. We still get, even though I have the sign on the door, no solicitors. They, as I point out, most of them cannot read. So I take that into consideration. Once in a while I open the door. But my conversations are always much shorter. I'm not interested in that conversation, especially if it's a Jehovah's Witness, because I already know what they're going to say. I know how they think. My wife's family is that, Her dad was that. Her brother is one of the leaders of it, and went to school in New York to become one, and all of that. So I know what that is. But I don't want to explain that to somebody that shows up on my doorstep. I don't want to tell them my whole story just to say, it's just good enough. Go away. I'm not interested. But the thing that usually works is I'm not interested because I'm a unity minister. Then they say, yeah, there's no hope for you, and they take off. The thought of spending an eternity surrounded by a bunch of self-righteous Bible thumpers isn't exactly my idea of a heavenly reward. So you get people that are trying to change your mind, and that's where they're going to go. Do I want to go there too? I don't think so. I don't want to be there when they're here, and let alone go and spend eternity with those that are supposed to be of that nature. And I'm being facetious, of course, but what is that picture of heaven? The joke is, do you like harp music? Well, sometimes. But do I want to hear it for the rest of my eternity? I don't think so. Do I want streets of gold? That, as I said, if you had streets of gold, it would be the value of asphalt. It would be valueless. You'd get used to it. There's just so many things about that picture that's painted that I stopped asking those kinds of questions. I stopped being interested in being enticed by mansions and gated communities and all the stuff that we're expected to be able to experience in heaven. But fear, guilt, and shame represent the holy trinity of controlling features incorporated in our religious upbringing. The sin and punishment model has been put forward for so long and from such authority that many accept it as a given. And that's the idea of Jesus suffering and dying for our sins. There's a lot of guilt involved in that thought. If somebody actually did that for you, that's you would think about it from that perspective. How could they do that for me? I'm not worth that. I mean, there's a whole line of reasoning that gets us into an emotional state that becomes open to listening to that line of thought. And it's a pretty big deal. If we could get rid of, well, just say, if we got rid of the idea of hell, if we truly erase that from everybody's consciousness, do you think the churches would be as full as they are today? Do you think people are there because they're not afraid of going to hell? That if they stop going, if they stop being part of that system, that is a possibility? I don't know if people think that way or not. I have a feeling they do. I have a feeling they do because anytime you turn on a channel where that's being played out, that's always part of the message. That there's always that chance. And of course, all the people that are there are smiling, thankfully, that they're not going to be among the lost, those that are unsaved. So we start asking a lot of questions. On one hand, we're told that God is love and the grace of God is our hope. On the other hand, as my caller suggested, those who do not walk in accordance with the Word of God will find that things do not work out so well in the long run. So that's kind of the impression this woman left me, is like when we decided to hang up, it was like, okay, that was the message I got. And it's like it just bounces off. It doesn't even go into my head anymore. But it's not like when you're a kid growing up and you get in trouble and your mom says, okay, just wait till your dad gets home, and the kind of thing. There's going to be some punishment. So the whole religious thing, I feel very confident in myself that I have put it aside. I do not lose any sleep over the questions that are raised. And I don't have a reaction, the reaction they would like me to have when they do call. But it's not a subject that I even think about. It's and especially when you listen again to the near-death experiencers, people who've had that, they say none of this judgment, sin, punishment stuff is real. None of it's part of the thing that you experience when you actually step out of your body. There's no judgment whatsoever. In fact, when they have their life review, they say almost to the person, they say the worst judge was myself. I saw all these things that were going on, and I think to myself, I could have done much better and will do much better than all of that. But the person running the video, whoever that is, the being of the light, running the video, they're just kind of like, whatever, I don't have a problem with any of this stuff. But the person watching it that's living the life, they say they do have a problem with it. And I think about that. I think about my own some things I've done that I'm not real proud of, and try to get to a place in myself where I can say, I did the best I knew at the time. It wasn't the best, it wasn't necessarily good, but am I going to suffer as a result of that? And the answer is, I don't really want to. I want to do what I can to get past anything I've done wrong. So, but I don't think I'm going to end up in an inferno for some of the things I've done, for any of the things I've done. I can't imagine a God of love tossing me into that inferno. Maybe he can, but. So somewhere in the middle of Kansas, there's a billboard that asks this question: if you died today, where would you spend eternity? We see that every time we'd go back to see our family. And I can't think exactly where it is. It's almost dead center in the middle, if I remember right. But it's online, so I found it again. But that's the question. If you died today, where would you spend eternity? And is there any thought in your mind that it may not turn out well for you? And if there is, get rid of that. That would be my advice. Figure out how to get past that. And I think probably most of you have. Probably all of you have. But it is a very real question. And when we go back to the Midwest, that attitude, as I've said, hangs in the air like the humidity. It just kind of suffocates you. It's there. It's very strong. You'll see billboards all along the road, about abortion, about, if you die today, where will you spend your eternity? That kind of message is there. Jesus is very prominent. I love Jesus. I love talking about Jesus. I love the research I have been doing for the last several years into who this guy was. And I think I've come up with a very different answer than I was given. And the reason is because I pretty much have rejected the Christian tradition around him. And that includes, all the major belief aspects of it. Like, who was he? I asked that question, who are you? Who do I say you are? And to answer that, you get past all of the religious stuff you've been raised with, and that it's still pretty strong. It's not that it keeps me awake, but it's still there. And that's why I think I'm writing about it. I'm trying to make peace in myself with it. And I find that many of the things I write about what I no longer believe, like if I would take the Apostles' Creed, which I have done, I stop about halfway through the first one, and I believe that. And the rest of it I don't. I don't go along with any of it. So does that make me not a good person? Does it make me a non-Christian that will go to hell? I think if you handed that Nicene Apostles' Creed to Jesus, said, how many of these things do you believe? He'd say, what? I don't recognize any of this. That's what I truly believe. He was a mystic that taught people how to connect what's going on in their life with how they thought. Change your mind, change your thinking, and you'll change your life. But he was a mystic. He was one who actually experienced God firsthand. And that gave him the power and the ability to speak with authority about this stuff. It's why, in his day, it was things like, you can't carry anything on the Sabbath. That's why when he told the guy to get up, take up his bed and walk, he took up his pallet and was walking, and the Pharisees jumped on him. He said, you can't do that. It's a religious idea that has nothing to do with truth, has nothing to do with reality. And so much of our religious upbringing is that way. It has nothing to do with the true nature of God or the true nature of Jesus. I think Jesus was very much a human being, just like you and I, but he had a deep and powerful insight into his direct relationship with God, and he understood that all people had that. And he comes along and says, let me show you how to do this. Let me show you how to make that connection, because it'll change your life. Even if you're struggling in the life of poverty that you're in now, there's ways that can be improved. There's ways you can live this life that will be better, and it'll make you happier, and it'll give you something to look forward to. If you can fix this thing, then you can fix the next thing and the next thing. It's a cascading effect. And then he dies. He's gone. And they revert back to, when's the Savior going to show up? When's he going to return? And it goes back to that. It goes back to the religious system. But he did not abandon the religious system. He was always a Jew and can be identified as that. But, they got him about not washing his hands before he ate once. And he said, it's not what goes into your mouth, it's what comes out. Perfectly logical. That's what corrupts a person, because it comes out of your consciousness, it comes out of your soul. Change that, and you'll change your life. And I think his message was very basic, and we have gotten way off on all of that. So in Kansas, this is a great question worth serious consideration, and drive through Kansas certainly offers ample time to think about it, because you're out in the middle of no place. There's nothing. But you catch a good sunset or sunrise in the middle of Kansas, there's nothing like it. It's gorgeous because there's nothing blocking it. And you get this big orange globe that sinks slowly down into the wheat field, and it's just, you can't even get a good picture of it because nothing captures what you see there. But it's a beautiful place. So you have a lot of time to think about where you're going to spend your eternity. And you think sometimes my eternity is going to be in Kansas. I'm never going to get out of this place. So those asking the question assume there are but two answers. You know you're making spiritual progress when you reserve the right to consider alternatives. So where will you spend your alternative or your eternity? The person asking that question, it's either going to be heaven or it's going to be hell. And the idea is you better think about, what's going on here. And there's a voice in Jesus that's asked that same question. It's like the 10 virgins, that didn't have enough oil. And he's saying, the wedding starts and they don't have oil, so they got to go buy it. They get shut out. The doors to the kingdom were shut. There's a voice, there's a Jesus that is one of those, the apocalyptic prophet. So it's no wonder that people pick up on that. But what we have to distinguish, was it Jesus the mystic or was it the gospel writer? Was it their agenda? And that is probably the right answer, is Jesus would never talk about anybody getting shut out of the kingdom. Anyone who has any sense of God as an inner presence, everywhere present, how do you get out of that? How do you escape omnipresence? And that's not something you can do. But when you get into a religious system, they will tell you how it can be done. And they'll tell you why you might be doing it. So you're in a system of human thinking. And that's what so many of us battle. That's what we have to, work our way out of. We have to work through what is true. What is a God of love? What's that mean? What does it mean that God is in me and I'm in God? You spend eternity, you'll spend it in God. We've already done that. As for me, I'll be here in the presence of God, just like I have always been. I don't think God would have it any other way. So, to answer the question, are you saved? I hope we all say, well, first of all, saved from what? And then figure out, yes, we are. We're fine. We are in God. God is in us. Whether we're in a body, whether we're out of a body, we're in it now. We're in the kingdom of God right now, and we're doing fine. I think when we step out of the body, we'll find life is easier in a lot of ways, but we won't be able to drive across Kansas. We won't have that joy. So we will. There's a lot of things we can do in the body we wouldn't do out of it. It's not a matter of having one or the other. We'll have both. And we probably have both many, many times. Okay? Thank you for watching this week's program. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with others. We want to reach as many people as we can, and we appreciate your help. We have many subjects in our video lineup, so feel free to take a look. If there's a topic you don't see and would like me to address, just put it in the comment section. I'd love to know what's on your mind. Thanks again for your interest in Independent Unity, and have a wonderful week.